Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Emily and I post a ton of bookish content on here. Every single Friday we come out with a new video, and if you are not new here, welcome back. Happy to have you. So for today's video, I thought it would be fun to do something once again a little bit bookish but a little bit different, and that is talk about my Kindle Unlimited recommendations. Currently I'm on chapter 11 of an arc that I received called What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. It's pretty good so far. You know, it's not my favorite, but it's pretty good. But we're not going to be talking about arcs in this video. We're going to be talking about books that have already been released on Kindle Unlimited that you can pick up today if you are a member and are interested. If you are not aware, Kindles are Amazon's form of e-reading, and they can cost between $100 to $250 depending on which one you want to get. I personally have the Kindle Paperwhite, which I believe was around $180, and I love it. It honestly, the battery power is so good on these things. I think I've charged it like 3 or 4 times since getting it a few months ago, so it lasts so long. And with Kindle Unlimited, it is $9.99 a month through Amazon, and you get to choose over like thousands of different choices in books from all different genres. So this is not sponsored in any way. I kind of wish it was, but it is not. I'm just giving you guys all of the tea you need before you decide to maybe pick up a Kindle, because obviously it is costly at first, but in the long run, if you don't want to have a million books like I do, you can also just have a ton of books on a Kindle, and it just gives you less congestion on your bookshelves. So I'm going to be talking about 15 recommendations for you guys. I have read most of these books, but some of them are just ones that I personally want to read soon or that I've heard really great things about. So we're just going to dive in. It's going to be a good time. I have all of the ratings from Goodreads of each of these books too, so I'm going to be stating them at the end of me just talking about them a little bit so you guys know exactly how loved they are by other people. First one we're going to be talking about is All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. I have never actually read a Mariana Zapata book, but this is definitely one that I want to read. I do know this is her most recent book, I believe, so I'm kind of tempted to go back and read something else first, just so I can like see the evolution of Mariana Zapata. But regardless, this is on Kindle Unlimited, and if you are not aware, a lot of her books are very steamy. So the premise of this book is basically that this woman decides to start over in a small town, have a new beginning, and she ends up kind of falling for her landlord next door. So that's kind of the gist of it. I don't really know much else, but I think that that's very saucy, and I am excited to read it. This book did receive 4.41 stars on Goodreads, so clearly it's loved by many people, and if you are the type of person who likes a steamy, slow burn, angsty romance, I guarantee you will probably love this one. The next one I have read, and that is The Plight Before Christmas by Kate Stewart. Yes, this is a Christmas romance. I would consider it a rom-com, but I think you could read this through any time of the year, honestly. We basically follow this girl named Whitney who is having a lot of trouble in her life with work and romance. She's not really getting anywhere, but she's also like in her 30s, like mid 30s, so she's like kind of discouraged and doesn't think she's gonna find love. And so she goes to her family cottage for the holidays, and her brother brings home a friend for the holidays because he doesn't have any family, and basically it ends up being the one love of Whitney's life from like 17 years ago when they were in college, and he, like her brother, obviously didn't know that, but they have to kind of just like work around that and kind of be civil because they didn't end off in the best way. And obviously you can tell this is a second chance romance, so it was really good. I rated this, I believe, 4 stars on Goodreads, and this one is kind of new, so it doesn't have as many ratings, so this could like sway the amount of stars that it's received, but it has 4.48 star rating out of 5 on Goodreads. So I don't know how many people have read this, but that is like an insanely good rating, and I couldn't agree more. It was a really fantastic book, perfect for the holidays, but I also think it could be perfect for any other time of the year. And something else that I really loved about this book was kind of like the dynamic of family within it, because there are little kids in it and her parents and all that stuff, and I think it was just really cute that the second chance romance had a lot to do with the family too. The next 3 books I have talked about here so much, and that is the RavenHood series by Kate Stewart, same author. Freaking love these books. I rated Flock 5 out of 5 and the other 2, Exodus and The Finish Line, 4 out of 5. I'm not going to talk about it too much because you guys already know that I am obsessed with this series, but we follow this girl named Cecilia throughout quite a few years of her life, and she basically just moves to this town that her dad lives in for the summer so she can work for him and essentially inherit money from him so she can help her mom. And when she goes to work at his factory plant, she ends up meeting this guy named Sean, and that's kind of where it all begins. She has multiple relationships with different people in Sean's life. She learns that these guys have many secrets and they all want to make a positive impact on the working class. I'm not going to get too much more into it other than that, but yes, multiple relationships at a time, which was very interesting. Again, super steamy book, but I love that there were so many secrets held from Cecilia because it really makes you feel for her. And then over time, she learns all of these secrets and it makes her grow so strong as a woman. So a lot of female empowerment in this book, but yeah, super great dark romance. And if you are looking for a series, I would 100%, like, I would recommend just getting Kindle Unlimited just so you could read this series. One last thing to note is that all of these books did have 4+ stars on Goodreads, so they are all super loved by a ton of people. Next up is another romance that honestly I have not read yet, and I really want to because I don't know why, but age gaps are just something that I tend to like in books. Sometimes they're a little weird. It depends on how they do it, but I have a feeling I'm gonna like this one. So this one is Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas, and it has definitely received some controversy, but this is essentially about a young couple who are having issues like living somewhere, and so they have to move in with her boyfriend's dad, and I'm pretty sure essentially that the dad and this girlfriend just kind of fall for each other. So I'm pretty sure it's a pretty large gap, I think like over 20 years, and I'm just interested to see because I know that age gaps are weird, but I like that this one is kind of like a forced proximity type of thing, and I know Penelope Douglas definitely writes some spicy books. So if you are interested at all in any close proximity, forced proximity, age gap romances, I would highly recommend picking this one up on Kindle Unlimited, and it has received 4.05 stars on Goodreads, so again, another highly loved book. This next one is something that is so fun in my opinion, and it is The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. I freaking love the cover of this book, first of all. I have not read it yet, but it is basically about this amusement park called Dreamland and this girl who sends a criticizing letter to the Dreamland owner, just letting them know about certain controversial things about their most expensive ride. And the girl, her name is Zara, I believe, is just very passionate about the amusement park industry and how she feels about Dreamland. And then in the process of all of this, the owner of the park, I believe his name is Rowan, ends up hiring her for her dream job. And obviously this one is where they are enemies to lovers, I believe. They do not get along whatsoever. She's super confused as to why he even hired her to begin with, but then they have to work together and so on, and I'm sure that they end up falling for each other. This is also going to be a series, I think. I think there's another book coming out very soon from the same author in the Dreamland series. So if you are interested in a series that has to do with amusement parks, you might very well like this one. And I know that there are definitely a bunch of secrets that are to be revealed throughout this book as well. So I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting. I'm definitely going to read it very soon. And this one has received 4.07 stars on Goodreads. The next 3 books that I'm going to recommend are from Colleen Hoover, and I own 2 of these actually. I don't even know where... Ah, there they are. First one being Layla. I am so surprised that this book is on Kindle Unlimited, but It is. This book came out, I believe, 2 years ago, and it follows our two main characters, Leeds and Layla, and they meet at this like bed and breakfast thing because Leeds is in a band and he's playing for her sister's wedding or something like that, and they instantly kind of gain an attraction and have a connection with each other, and essentially they fall in love. And then that's not the end of it. I don't know why I said it.
They fall in love and that's it.
That's definitely not it. So they end up falling in love, they live together, and then this tragic accident happens, and because of it they kind of need to rekindle their relationship. So Leeds decides to bring Layla back to where it all began, at this bed and breakfast, and it is actually on the market. So he has been in debate with himself purchasing this land so they could have it, but Layla is just like not too interested in that. And when they get there, some haunting stuff happens. That's all I'll say. I don't want to spoil it too much, but Leeds is kind of stuck in a weird situation where it's like, do I just solely focus on Layla, or do I help this other person and the haunting that is going on in this house? So it's definitely different from a lot of stuff that Colleen Hoover writes. It's still a romance, but this book and Verity definitely give off more of like a thriller vibe. So if you are interested in that, I would highly recommend Layla. And while this one is definitely not a favorite from a lot of cohorts, it does still have 3.82 stars on Goodreads. And the other one that I own is actually one that I just picked up that literally just released this month, or I guess last month, because you're going to be seeing this in February. Regardless, it's Reminders of Him. I'm so excited. I'm reading this book in February, and gotta love living by a train track. It's really, yeah, it's great. But if you're not aware of what this new book is about, it is about a mother who just gets released from prison, and her sole goal is to find her daughter and regain that connection with her. And her daughter, I believe, is only like 4 years old, so she really wants to start off early and make sure that they have a really great relationship from the beginning of her daughter's life. And a lot of the people in the town obviously don't trust her because she just came from prison. So the only person in this town who truly trusts her is this bar owner, and I am currently forgetting his name, but I guess there's controversy around them being together, and I'm not entirely sure why. It doesn't really explain that part, but similar to the Plight Before Christmas, this one, like I said, literally just came out, so there actually was quite a few reviews on here, and it was given a 4.72 stars. Just impeccable. So highly recommend picking this one up because Colleen Hoover never really disappoints in my eyes, and I think that you will absolutely love it. And the last Colleen Hoover book that I would recommend on Kindle Unlimited, I do not have in person, but that is Regretting You. Again, this book is revolving around a mother and a daughter. The mother's name is Morgan and the daughter's name is Clara. She's like, I think, a teenager in the book. I'm not 100% sure, but basically Clara does not want to have any of the same mistakes as her mother. She does not want to follow in her footsteps, and they do not really get along, and the only person who can actually make this family be whole is the father. And then there is a tragic accident with the father, and the two girls have to kind of learn how to live together without him. And then it's a kind of cool story because it ends up being where both of the girls end up having their own relationships with guys, and Mother Morgan finds comfort in this guy that she did not expect, and then Clara ends up dating this guy who is forbidden. I don't know why, but it's kind of cool that it's like two romances in one. And honestly, all of Colleen Hoover's books that have to do with heartbreak and death are really good, so I would highly recommend that one as well. And it has a 4.23 stars on Goodreads. Those were all my romance recommendations. We are now going to be moving into my thriller recommendations. So the first two are from my favorite author aside from Colleen Hoover, and that is John Marrs. So the first one being What Lies Between Us by John Marrs. This book was so messed up in so many different ways, and if you are a fan of psychological thrillers that have to do with family dynamic, highly recommend this one. It basically has to do with a mother named Maggie and a daughter named Nina. Something horrific happens in their life, and Nina's dad just disappears. She doesn't know what happened, but she does have a suspicion that Maggie knows a lot about it. And So there are a bunch of secrets that Maggie is holding from Nina, but Nina doesn't realize that these secrets are actually protecting her as well. Wink, wink. That wink was ridiculously bad. But basically, because of that, Nina kind of like sentenced her mother to 21 years locked up, chained up in their attic, and that's all I'm gonna say. It's pretty messed up. There's a ton of secrets. I will say there are trigger warnings in this book for miscarriage, and I think just miscarriage, and then like mother-daughter dynamic. If you maybe don't have a great relationship with your mom, that might be something that'll hit you in this book. But this was such a good book. It was one of my favorite books of 2021. 5 out of 5 stars for me, and it has 4.09 stars on Goodreads. And the next one is one of my favorite books of all time, The One by John Mars. If you have never heard of this book, it is a Netflix series. Not a good one, honestly. They kind of butchered this story on Netflix, but the book itself is really great. So this one here, it says on the back, how far would you go to find the one? So there's this woman who is a scientist, and she discovers that with DNA, she can basically find anyone's soulmate. And we follow 5 different relationships throughout this book. I don't know why I'm like covering my hands, sorry. We follow 5 different relationships that are all completely different. I will tell you, there are some long distance ones, there's ones with criminals, there's a lot. There's one with like someone dying, and there's a plot twist. There's a lot there, and it's very interesting. The chapters are really short, and I feel like a lot of people at first think that there's too much going on, but as you follow the story, you kind of just want more and more from these characters, and it really reels you in. So this one here is definitely more of like a sci-fi thriller type of book, even with a little bit of romance. Like, this book has everything. So I once again rated this one 5 out of 5 stars. And it has 4.13 stars on Goodreads. I love this book so much. I love it. Please go read this. The next 2 books are from an author that I honestly adore so much. I just love her as a person, and that is from Geneva Rose. So I do not own either of these books, and I have not read either of these books, but they are on my TBR. So the first one being The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. This book is about a couple named Sarah and Adam. Sarah is a defense attorney, and Adam is kind of just like chilling. I don't know, he's not really that impressive. He is like a failing writer, and he ends up cheating on his wife with this girl, and they meet at like their cottage or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but they end up finding that woman, aka his mistress, murdered in their cottage, and obviously the first suspect is Adam. So now Sarah has this like tough choice of figuring out whether or not she wants to defend her husband because he cheated on her. So she kind of has to really think about whether she thinks he's innocent or guilty in the situation, and I'm sure there are going to be a ton of plot twists in this. So I personally cannot wait to read this. It's been on my radar for a really long time, and I don't know why I never picked it up, but here we are. We're about to. It was rated a 4.03 star on Goodreads, so once again, highly loved by a bunch of people. And the next one from her is The Girl I Was, which is one that actually just recently came up on my radar, and it sounds so interesting. It kind of gives me a little bit of like In 5 Year vibes in a way, but in a thriller aspect. It is about this girl named Alexis. She is in her adulthood, and she's going through a ton of hardships. So she's going through a breakup, and she has so much debt from school, all this stuff that she's just like blaming her 18-year-old self for now, and wishes that she had just made some changes back then to ensure that her future would be better. Essentially, the premise of this book is she goes to bed and she wakes up in her college town in the year 2002, which is when she was 18 in college. She has to find her 18-year-old self, convince her that it's her from the future, and then try to help her make proper decisions. I don't really know what else is gonna happen, but I think that sounds really interesting. So that is The Girl I Was, and it had 4.05 stars on Goodreads. We are finally on the last book, you guys, and this one is actually a prequel. of The Last Mrs. Parrish. So The Last Mrs. Parrish is by Liv Constantine, and the book that I'm actually going to be talking about is The First Shot by Liv Constantine. Like I said, this is a novella. I think it's like under 100 pages, and it is the prequel, meaning that this is what happens before The Last Mrs. Parrish. So I'm super excited to read this because I did really enjoy The Last Mrs. Parrish, but I think learning about our main character is just going to be so fascinating. So we follow our main character, Amber, and we kind of learn how she went from a small town girl to a master manipulator when it comes to wealthy men. She decides to create a whole new identity for herself, moves to this town, and essentially just tries to reel in this guy and have him fall in love with her so that she can have him and his money and his popularity. The only issue is that one mistake and all of this could kind of go up in flames. So I'm not exactly sure what that means, but again, I'm super excited to learn more about Amber and how she became such a psychotic bitch. So that is the last book, and this one I don't think is as popular because it had 3.75 stars on Goodreads, but again, it is a prequel novella, so I don't know if a lot of people know about it or if they really care about it, but I thought that was a really interesting one to share. Those are, I think that's more than 15 books because I had like a series in there, but regardless, 15 books from Kindle Unlimited that I think you guys should definitely pick up if you decide to purchase a Kindle and a Kindle Unlimited today, or if you already have it. These are my recommendations. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that I got you guys a little bit excited for some new books to read. And speaking of which, I'm going to go probably finish off What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher now. So I will talk to you guys in my next video. Do not forget to subscribe, and thank you so much. See ya.